do that in part because it lowers my blood pressure and the stakes a lot to just be doodling around in a notebook. There's something very kind of scary about, for those of you who are writers, about that empty page on the screen and the blinking cursor. Try longhand, because it saves my life on lots of occasions. And I filled eventually 3 notebooks with thoughts about Marcus, and I call them scenes. Sometimes it's an exchange of dialogue. Sometimes I don't even know who's talking. Sometimes it's a description of a character. Sometimes it's a question like, what would Marcus think of Alexander Hamilton? And I'll just write for 4 pages. As a historian, I often start the day with a question, not with an answer. And I'll just write about what I think and what I imagine. And then I get dressed and I get my breakfast and I go downtown and I teach. But while I'm on campus, I have access to a reference library and a lot of online databases, and my students do not tend to come to my office hours regularly. And so I had some time on my hands, and I end up researching the kinds of things that I've been writing. So I might have free associated on Marcus and Hamilton with basically zero knowledge of Hamilton. But what will happen is I'll have lots of questions. You know, what did Hamilton believe in politically? I actually don't know, because I'm a British 16th century historian. You know, where was Hamilton grow? What class was Hamilton? What kind of religious views did Hamilton have? Would Marcus and Hamilton have had anything in common? And I'll just kind of imagine and free associate. Then I'll go off and I'll do research. And the answers to those questions will feed the longhand writing that I do the next day. And I'll write some more. And I'll generate more questions. And then I'll go to the library. So I don't actually decide, like, I'm going to write a book about Marcus and I will now do all the research, go, and then stop and after the research is done and write. Nor do I write everything and then, like, fact check it later. It's a very interrelated process. And it involves a very wide reading list. So, you know, sometimes I'll think, you know, who is Marcus's best friend? And then I'll wonder, wait a minute, did people have best friends in the 18th century? If so, how did they think about those best friends? What was friendship like? You know, then I get to my office and I'm like, friendship, 18th century America. You know, and out comes a list of titles, and I read those books of history, and those books of history send me to other books. I read lots of novels. I read lots of sermons. I read lots of 18th century newspapers, as well as scholarship on the period. And usually that period of sort of this loop-de-loop of writing and research and just sort of free associating and playing can take me anywhere from about 9 months to 18 months. That was true for all the books, really, even Shadow of Night, which is a period I know really well, because it turns out in graduate school, they teach you many things, but they do not tell you the relative size of Elizabethan currency. So I had literally no idea whether a farthing was bigger than a penny, was bigger than a pound. Because you need to know that if you're writing a historical novel. You don't actually need to know that if you're going to graduate school for Elizabethan history. Or, you know, the land speed of a horse on frozen ground in November. These were the kind of things that I would end up thinking about. And it's usually in that 9 to 18 month period that I have a kind of aha moment, where suddenly it's like I can practically hear all the cosmic tumblers clicking into place, because I read something or I encounter something or I finally ask the right question that opens up the right avenue where I go, oh my gosh, now I know not only what I want to say, but how I want to say it and why. In the case of Marcus, it came when I read Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Now,